So we have gone through the examples of thread, how to create thread with extending the thread class and also implementing the runnable interface. Now we'll talk about the thread lifecycle. So how the thread lifecycle works, which are the stages thread goes in their lifecycle. So that all we are going to understand in this video. To start with, I would like to remind one more time that when we run any thread, so basically we call the thread.start. It doesn't guarantee that the thread will run immediately, because I already told you that to run a thread, they basically need the cycles of processor. It might be possible that cycles of processor might be busy that time. If they don't get cycles of processor instantly, they won't execute it instantly. If they will get instantly, they will execute instantly. So after calling the start on any thread, when it will execute, how it will execute, that we are going to understand in this particular lifecycle tutorial. So JVM has a program named Thread Scheduler. So when any request come to run the thread scheduler used to schedule the thread. That is basically keeping those thread in a pool. That is basically called the runnable pool. These threads are ready to run and they will run when they will get the cycles of processor. So how it happens? So we'll basically first we'll create the thread object. So you have created the thread objects. It means that thread has been created, but when you call the start method, then they should execute. But as I told you, they will depend on the cycles of processor. So there is a pool called runnable pool. Whenever you execute a start method on any thread object, it will directly go into the runnable pool. And what is the meaning of the runnable pool? That these threads are ready to run and they will run as soon as they will get the cycles of processor. So that is basically the runnable pool. Now suppose we have created 3 threads and all those 3 threads came into this particular runnable pool. Now which thread will run first? Thread 1, thread 2, thread 3. So as soon as thread scheduler get the cycles of processor, it will pick one of the thread from the pool and give the cycles to run that particular thread. First they will pick the higher priority thread, and if all the threads has the same priority, then the thread scheduler pick the thread randomly and execute it. As we seen in the previous tutorial, that when we are trying to execute the thread multiple times, so what was happening? Sometimes thread 1 was executing first, sometimes thread 2 was executing first, because all the threads had the same priority. But you can set the priority of the thread, and then when the thread scheduler will pick the thread from the runnable pool, it will check if your thread has the higher priority, it will execute that first, and if the thread has the same priority, then it will pick randomly. So now suppose you have started a thread and it has got the cycles of processors, so then it will go into the running pool. So the running stage of the thread will be in the running pool. And for how long it will run? Until the run method is executed. When the run method is fully, all the instructions in the run method is fully executed, the thread will be dead. So the basic life cycle of the thread is you create a thread object and then you execute the start method on that thread object. It goes into runnable pool. When it gets the cycles of processor, it starts executing and then it used to run until all the instruction in the run method is executed, and then it basically got dead. So this is the basic life cycle. Now there is also a stage, as you can see in the diagram, there is a block pool. So now we'll talk about the block pool when it will come into the picture. So suppose thread is in the running stage and you want to perform sleep, wait, join, suspend, these kind of method on that particular thread. So what will happen? It will go into the block pool again, and then it will go into the runnable pool. So how it works? So basically, so suppose you have a thread called T1, you called T1.sleep for 1000 millisecond. So it will directly go to the block pool and it will wait for 1000 millisecond. Then again, from block pool to runnable pool, it needs the cycles of processor to go there. So thread scheduler will give the cycles to that particular thread and it will go to the runnable pool. Again, from the runnable pool to the running stage, it will check. If all the thread has the same priority, then it will pick the random thread and it will move that to the running stage. So this is how it basically works. It means when the run method of any thread end, till that the thread will be run between runnable, running and block pool. If you want to give rest to your thread, you can apply these methods. These methods basically works little different from each other. So now we have understood how the block pool work. So there is another scenario here called yield. So what happens? So basically you want to take the cycles of processor, but you don't want to wait them in the block pool. So you can apply the yield on that particular thread. So it will directly go to the runnable pool, and again that particular scenario will occur that it will pick from here again and it will go to the running stage. And after the completion of run method, the thread goes to the dead. And if you call a stop method on any running thread, it will go to dead also. But from JDK 1.0, it is deprecated. And you can set the priority to that thread by calling the set priority method. So they have the predefined method as well. If I try to call thread1 dot set priority, this is the method. You can set the priority of any thread, and you can just call thread dot max priority, min priority. If I go to priority, you can see there are three constant: max priority, min priority and normal priority. So this is basically the constant you can set, and by default will be normal priority. You can also directly pass this constant also. So if I will pass 1, it will act as a max priority. So there is an interview question here also. So sometimes interviewer asks that what will happen if I will pass maybe 50 or any number instead of 1. So then there will be runtime exception. So this is all about the thread lifecycle. In the next tutorial, we will try to understand one of the very important topic of threading is synchronization. If you want to understand synchronization, you have to understand first thread lifecycle very well. Then only you are going to understand synchronization, because in synchronization there will be the multiple scenario where this lifecycle are going to help you to understand those scenario and to solve those scenario. So yeah, let's get into the next video.